All right, folks, buckle up, because the Genshin Impact leak scene is absolutely on fire right now, and we've got a mountain of new information to unpack. If you thought the game's future was going to be predictable, think again. We're talking major curveballs about characters we've been waiting years for, some hilarious and slightly concerning, constellation designs, and even a brand new face from Inazuma that has the entire community speculating like crazy. Stick around, because we're diving deep into the latest leaks surrounding Varka, Durin, Scaramouche, and a surprise samurai that might just be the character you've been begging for. Now, let's get into it. Save up to 25% on the current banners at lootbar.gg, especially for the Nod Cry release. Lootbar is offering the all-in-one pack and the 6,480 pack for only $69 compared to $100 in-game. That's a $31 saving. I just entered my UID and selected my server. In less than 5 minutes, the gems appeared in my account. As you can see, I received double the amount for my first purchase, just like with in-game top-ups. And remember, the double bonus for your first purchase has been reset in 6.0. Beyond Genshin, you can also top up in Honkai Star Rail. Lootbar has over 100,000 satisfied users and also supports PS5 and Xbox top-ups. New users can get an extra 10% discount, while returning users get 5%. The link is in the description. We've got to start with the biggest shocker of the leak batch, Varka. For years, the community has had this collective assumption about the cavalry captain of Mondstadt. We've been name-dropping him since the game's infancy, right? The vibe was always that he was this foundational bedrock character for Mondstadt, much like Jean or Diluc. Because of that, almost everyone placed their bets on him being a permanent, standard banner 5-star, the next Diluc, if you will. It just felt safe. It felt right. Well, according to these new leaks, throw that entire theory out the window. Varka is not going to be a standard character. Nope. He's slated to be a limited-time banner character. And that's not even the wildest part. The leaks describe him as team-locked. Now, what in Tevat does team-locked even mean? That's the million-dollar question, and the comment sections are already a war zone of theories. Some players are speculating that this means he'll be completely dependent on another specific 5-star support to function, maybe even a character like the rumored Snezhnaya Mayor who's supposed to release just before him. Others think it could be a hard restriction, locking him into teams with a specific element combo, or even only with other characters from the Knights of Favonius. Whatever it ends up being, it stirred up a ton of conversation. I saw one comment that absolutely sent me. It just said, Varka beating the standard allegations. And it's true. He really was the #1 suspect for the standard banner for so long. Now, from a design perspective, this team-locked idea isn't entirely new for Hoyoverse. We've seen it with Shenhe, who is practically a dedicated cryo support, or Goru, who is hard-locked into making Geo teams shine. The obvious worry here is that if Varka is too specific, he might feel less appealing for players who don't already have, or don't want to pull for, his required teammates. But here's the flip side. Being a limited banner character almost guarantees he's going to launch strong. Think about it. Hoyoverse rarely puts out a limited 5-star that feels like pure filler. Even a character like Dihaya, who eventually joined the standard roster, had a flashy, powerful aesthetic that sold well on her initial run. So, while there's definitely some frustration in the air, there's also a massive wave of hype. We're finally going to see the legendary Varka in action, and if he's limited, you can bet he's going to make a splash. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about something a little more fun and flavor-focused: Easter eggs. The leaks for the upcoming version 6.8, codenamed Luna, mention these hidden interactions if you run a very specific team: Varka, Scaramouche, and Kirara. It's described as adding some extra visual flair to your elemental burst damage, with a small damage boost on top. And the leakers were very quick to note that this boost might not be high, which is basically the polite way of saying, don't you dare try to use this to 36-star the Spiral Abyss. But the idea here is what's fascinating. We've had minor story interactions in domains and plenty of unique voice lines, but baking a tiny, tangible combat synergy just for putting lore-connected characters together, that's new territory. It's a small touch for sure, but it shows that Hoyoverse might be experimenting with ways to make team building feel more alive and narrative-driven, beyond just chasing the biggest numbers. And then, We have Durin. Oh boy. If you saw my last video, you know we already did a deep dive on him, but this new batch of leaks? They added so much more spice, specifically to his constellations. So, at his final constellation, C6, he supposedly unlocks a special geo-damage boost. Here's the catch. It looks like the only character who can truly, fully benefit from it is Albedo. Yeah, you heard that right. This immediately set off a nuclear explosion of memes in the community. People are calling it Brother Impact, joking that the developers just want to ship Durin and Albedo together forever. Look, if you're an Albedo main, you might be absolutely loving this. But for everyone else, it feels like a bizarrely restrictive design choice. Locking a C6 effect, the pinnacle of a character's power, to practically one other character feels like overkill, even if it's meant to be lore accurate. The community reaction has been absolutely hilarious. One comment I saw said, "Time to save for C6 Durin to pair with my C6 Albedo," and you just can't tell if that's the most committed flex in the world or just pure, unadulterated sarcasm. Another person pointed out that it makes Durin feel less like a versatile support and more like he was designed to be Albedo's personal hype man. Now, personally, I think it's way too early to start doom posting. We've seen final constellation bonuses get completely overhauled during the beta testing phase before. If the backlash is strong enough, Hoyoverse might very well adjust it. But for now, the brother complex memes are thriving, and it's honestly a mood. But it's not all about Albedo. The leaks also mentioned that Durin will have little Easter egg interactions with two of the most enigmatic figures in the game, Nicole and Alice. This is huge for the Hexenzirkel storyline. These two have been teased for years, and this suggests that Hoyoverse isn't just making the Hexenzirkel a one-off gimmick. They're building it into a long-term faction theme, much like they've done with the Fatui Harbingers. They start with a few teases, then gradually roll them out into full-blown, interconnected systems. If you're a lore enthusiast, this is incredibly exciting. If you're just here for the meta, I can see how it feels like a lot of waiting for payoffs that aren't immediately useful in combat. Speaking of meta, there was a big clarification about Durin's core kit. Originally, some people thought he was designed specifically to boost older Hydro DPS characters, which caused a lot of confusion. But now, it's been clarified. Durin actually reduces all elemental res for enemies by a flat 15%. And here's the kicker. He himself counts as a Hexenzirkel member. So just by having him on your team, you get that universal shred. And if you stack him with other future Hexenzirkel members, that shred supposedly goes even higher. That is a really, really strong utility baseline. It immediately stops him from being too narrowly focused on just one element. The big question this raises is, does this power creep the Viridescent Veneer artifact set? Well, not exactly. Remember, VV only works when you trigger a swirl reaction with an Animo character, and it only shreds resistance for the element you swirl. Durin doing it universally, but scaling it through his faction ties, makes sense as a balancing act. Still, the community, in its infinite wisdom, has already dubbed this racism impact, joking that he only helps his friends. It's a dumb meme, but it highlights a real concern players have about being forced into specific team-building boxes. And this brings us back to everyone's favorite angsty puppet, Scaramouche, or the Wanderer. According to the leaks, you can slot him into some of these Easter egg team comps. But again, with the warning, boost might not be high, prepare mentally. And you know what? Wanderer mains immediately latched onto that line. The comment sections were flooded with people saying things like, "As a Wanderer main, I'll take anything." Literally anything. It's kind of sad, but also incredibly wholesome. They aren't expecting a massive game-breaking buff. They're just happy their favorite character might get some form of acknowledgement in these new systems. That's the kind of community humor I absolutely love. It shows just how deeply invested people are in these characters, even when the raw numbers aren't promising. Finally, we have the leak that came completely out of left field and set the entire Inazuma fanbase on fire. We're talking about a brand new character, a male sword user from Inazuma, specifically wielding a katana, and his background is directly tied to both Kazuha and Scaramouche. This immediately ignited a firestorm of speculation. Some players are theorizing this could be Tomo, Kazuha's friend who died defending the Vision, a character we've only ever heard about in stories. Others think it might be Katsuragi, another tragic lore figure from Inazuma's past, tied to the forging of the Daitatara Nagamasa. And of course, you can't have a cool katana-wielding character without the Virgil memes. My feed was instantly filled with people begging, "Please, just give us a proper Judgment Cut samurai already." It's funny, but it also highlights a real desire in the community for a stylish, sword-focused male DPS that isn't just a reskin of a gameplay style we already have. But the really, truly exciting part of this, the leaks also confirmed that Kazuha himself is finally getting new story content. This is massive. He hasn't been relevant in the main Archon questline since his appearance in Fontaine. The reactions to this have been a real mix of hype and caution. On one hand, people are thrilled that one of the game's most beloved characters is stepping back into the spotlight. On the other hand, some are worried that bringing back Tomo, or tying Kazuha's story too directly to this new character, could undercut his existing character arc, which was all about finding peace and moving forward from that loss. Personally, I think it's possible to do both. Hoyoverse has a decent track record of reintroducing characters in ways that add new layers of depth without breaking their original arcs. Think about how Zhongli kept reappearing in different events, adding to his lore, or how Raiden's story continued to develop in new Inazuma updates. If handled with care, this could be one of the most emotional and impactful storylines we've seen since the Liu Archon quest days. So let's do a quick recap of where we're at. Varka isn't the standard banner savior we thought. He's limited and possibly team-locked. Durin is either Albedo's ultimate partner or the cornerstone of the Hexenzirkel faction, depending on your perspective, and his C6 has spawned a million memes. Scaramouche mains are happily coping with the promise of any small bonus they can get. Inazuma might be giving us the Virgil-style samurai we've been dreaming of, alongside long-awaited story content for Kazuha. Now, remember, none of this is set in stone. This is all pre-beta information. Numbers, kits, and even entire character roles can change dramatically before they're officially released. But the overall direction is crystal clear. Hoyoverse is pushing harder than ever into faction-based mechanics, hidden team synergies, and story-driven kit designs. So I have to ask you, what do you think about all this? Are you disappointed that Varka is limited, or does that actually make you more excited to see how powerful he'll be? Do you love the idea of these little team Easter eggs, or does it feel like wasted development time that could be spent elsewhere? And are you ready for Kazuha to finally get more story content, even if it means potentially reopening some old wounds? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, because this is one of those moments where the community's opinion is completely split in every direction, and I'm genuinely curious where you all stand. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this breakdown of the latest Genshin leaks. If you enjoyed this discussion and want to stay on top of all the big changes coming to Teyvat, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. There's a lot more coming with Natlan, and we'll be covering every single twist and turn. Save up to 25% on current banners at lootbar.gg, links in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.